So if I'm curious if you guys saw, John Oliver had a pretty long segment. John Oliver, the comedian, would call him an American comedian, but I think he's actually British. But his show's probably just done in the United States. But he did a pretty long segment about cryptocurrency, and I thought he was relatively fair because on one hand he said, yeah, you get these crazy gains, but there's a lot of scams. I was like, okay, I can't really disagree with that. The one thing I will say is that he really brought forward some of the biggest nuts within cryptocurrency, and he poked fun at them. And unfortunately, in cryptocurrency, we have a lot of we have a lot of libertarians, and they're a little rough around the edges. So I think Brock Pierce made an appearance. He was talking about his Burning Man weddings and all sorts of I don't know what you call it, Burning Man-esque stuff. But then also they had Carlos Matos, the BitConnect guy,
He was
what's up? No, they showed him, and then they had, I think it's either Key or Peel came out later and essentially did another rendition of him.
That guy is so famous. Even if he goes to jail, like, he has a great career coming out.
I honestly think he's just like a patsy, so I don't really think
but he's memed famous. I mean, it doesn't matter.
It'll be interesting to see whether someone else actually uses them on their project.
If he writes a book, I'm buying it.
I hope he pivots into some sort of career, because I personally have liked the whole BitConnect, all the BitConnect remixes that have come out with him too. It's like every week there's another remix, and I'm definitely a sucker for that. But I think the thing is with the John Oliver segment, he went into it pretty well, but he's right. There are a lot of scams, but I'm wondering if you guys think in the industry, is there a bit of a PR problem that we have? Because
what do you mean?
I mean, the people who are the thought leaders in the sector tend not to be well polished. They're not good on a mic. They're not good in front of a camera. And on one hand, it's like, okay, well, we don't want people like that anyway. We want people who have good ideas. That's fine. But if we're trying to reach the public, is that an issue?
Yeah, marketing. That's a thing any industry is going to have to deal with. I think that's just because we're I think marketing's gotten a lot better in the crypto space. I think just because of the whole ICO thing. The ICO is sort of all the new coins they're sort of having to deal with their own new marketing. They're not really bootstrapping in that Bitcoin ecosystem in the same way. Like Dash has their own thing with marketing.
Yeah, Dash is one of the few. Well, I mean, but they've had issues with their marketing as well.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's what I'm saying. They started up from the ground up. It's not like they had like Bitcoin has been really well marketed just because it's been around longer and there's a lot more businesses in it, and there's a lot more polished faces and a lot more polished videos on it.
I would say that Bitcoin still has a marketing problem.
For sure.
Actually.
For sure.
Not just a PR problem, but a marketing problem because no one owns it. Like, no one owns the responsibility.
Is that a problem?
No one owns the responsibility.
Decentralized.
That's part of the experiment, isn't it?
No one owns the responsibility, though.
It comes with trade-offs.
Right? Like, so your path to adoption is actually much lower because it's so decentralized.
I mean, that's the same thing as the internet, though, right? The internet had a marketing problem, you could say.
Yeah. I also think this obviously parallels a lot to the internet. So I think the problem really boils down to the maturity of the ecosystem. Like, do you really need 10 times as many people using cryptocurrency right now? Are we even ready for that? Like, no, probably not, right? Like, we have to be kind of realistic about where we are technically.
I think it's a technological utility thing. I think playing around with it isn't bad for having too many people playing around with it.
No, I'm not saying that there shouldn't be more people playing around and innovating. I'm saying actually using on a regular basis.
I feel like there's hardly anyone actually using it. It's still a very small market.
Well, that's what I mean,
Yeah.
right? So, like, in order, though, to get there, we have to have more innovation. We have to have more iteration, meaning there needs to be more projects doing the same thing that are all basically adding to the overall knowledge to get to the goal, which is a working product of whatever industry you're in, whether that's insurance, real estate, even I've seen marketing related stuff, video content delivery. Like, there's all these different applications, right, around this technology, yet none of them are mature enough to go fully to like market, right?
Right.
And even the most mature still has the biggest issue in being Bitcoin, right? So if some of these companies, yes, they got it right because they use part of their raise or everything that comes in from part of mining or what rewards, whatever it is, they have a marketing strategy. Now, some of them needed to do that because they rebranded like Dash
Yeah.
from another coin that was pre-mined, right? And people don't realize necessarily what they're getting into because people don't look at the history, even though it's not that old,
Yeah.
right? 2 years ago, Dash is announcing, we are coming out as Dash. And then at the Miami conference. And this year, they basically sponsored everything,
Yeah.
right? So, I mean, it's a big difference as opposed to the popularity of what happened with Dash versus how long it's taken for Bitcoin to get there, because no one actually is in charge of marketing Bitcoin. And nobody wants to spend their budget towards helping market the bigger picture because even though everybody benefits, right, by the gains that Bitcoin has if you own some.
Yeah, I don't know what you could really do about that. I mean, you could try to get miners involved, but that's sort of a hard thing. What do you think, Kylan? How would you market Bitcoin?
How would I market? I think a lot of it's going to just be up to the companies that are really large, to be quite honest. And kind of like the same way that you have like open source software, and the companies that get really big, they really want to use the technology are going to be the ones that are going to have to push for it. They're going to have to invest developers and money into it. At least I think that's how it could work. I don't like the built-in marketing stuff, the built-in slush funds. I mean, I made it pretty clear that I'm not a fan of that at all. Yeah. There was something though with the John Oliver segment. There's a point in me that has really gotten not jaded, but gotten to the point where I guess my skin has gotten thicker. It's kind of like, okay, like you don't have to like it. Yeah, there are scams. If you don't want to use it, then just don't use it. Like I don't really like. I'm at the point where it's going to get where it needs to go. It'll get there when it gets there. For me, it's almost not even worth it emotionally to get involved and say, oh well, I don't like that this person said that. These people get into arguments and they bicker about every little thing on the internet. I think for whatever reason, I've kind of outgrown that stage. But I remember there was a point in time where we just loved whenever Bitcoin was mentioned at all, and now it's happening often enough that it's not noteworthy anymore. And that's a good thing though, right? I mean, we've arrived to the next stage, so to speak. Okay, so another more I don't know what you call it, socially related, social media related issue that came up during the last week or two.
Before we get
go
into
ahead, go ahead.
Around marketing, I've always had this idea that I agree with you that the strategy needs to be kind of put onto the shoulders of, or the responsibility should be put on the shoulders of the companies who are using Bitcoin the most and profiting from that.
Right.
that they have a marketing budget for their company, probably, most likely. Right. So why don't they just take a small? Why isn't somebody start a company, a marketing related company that's sole focus is to
like a nonprofit
help to promote Bitcoin specifically.
There are.
And you go around to all these big companies and ask for like 1 to 2% of their entire marketing budget, and if you can get the top 20 companies to give you 1% of their marketing budget, you're going to have a lot of money to do a national campaign or a global campaign on some level, and someone's got the expertise to be able to run that. And if you could get, $10 million a year or $20 million a year to be able to give this Bitcoin thing like a kick in the pants and pour some rocket fuel under it, I think you're going to see how much more adoption would actually increase.
And I feel like if it was something where we're relatively transparent, there were a list somewhere, okay, who's contributed and who hasn't. If it's something where you have these small companies that are pitching quite a bit of money, and then there's someone like, I'm not going to use names, but like a really large company that makes all sorts of money in cryptocurrency, they're not contributing anything, then at least we as enthusiasts and people who are actually involved in the community and the industry, we could kind of make that a little bit of an issue. We could give them, we could hassle them, so to speak. If someone's talking about working for this company, you say, well, guys don't really contribute. I mean, they are in the industry, they are making lots of money, but for some reason they're not contributing to this fund. So I guess you could apply social pressure, so to speak, right? And that would be a little bit more of a voluntary sort of solution to it, right?
You only got to get like 4 of them to be like, yeah, we'll do it, and the rest of them, you could point your finger at.
You're like,
them.
oh, well, these 4 did it. Yeah, I think that stuff like that could work, and I would hopefully someone is
for the greater good
is working on it, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you're right that it is something that could work, because isn't that kind of how things work in like
it's open source. Give back to, right?
Yeah.
You're making so much money off of something that's open source just because you built a software platform around, keeping track of it, essentially. Like Coinbase literally just keeps track off chain for the most part, right? I mean, they've done some innovative stuff on their own side to do protection, but like overall, their whole job is to make money off of off-chain transactions.
Yeah, but there's a whole legal system. That's really what they're.
That's what I'm thinking. The legal system is a big part.
That's their job, dealing with the government and stuff, and their banking relationships.
So isn't that what like the traditional industries do? Like you see, this ad is brought to you by milk. It's like, dude, how does milk? who's milk? Like, what are you talking about?
I can't buy stocks in milk.
But that's like the industry, right? The milk industry, the vegetable industry, the bread industry. Like somehow they've figured something out
We
where
need
they
the
kind
NRA
of
of
work
Bitcoin.
together. Something like that. Okay,
Which goes back into lobbying, which is a form of marketing.
Yeah.
Essentially,
Really.
right? So like,
Are there? Is there marketing? Is there lobbying right now?
yeah,
for crypto?
there's lobbying groups that are out there.
Are they
and
that big though, or they're probably small at this point?
No, they've been around for years.
For crypto?
Yeah, they're in Washington D.C.
Really?
Yeah.
So are they doing
that's
good
awesome.
things, or is it like?
I
what do you
mean,
think? Like,
yes, they're doing good things, and yes, they're doing bad things in the fact that they're following traditional
Anti-competitive stuff, probably.
like they're in the lobbying game.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't get more like. I mean, it's the exact opposite of what crypto
Corruption.
should be about, right? So they think they're doing the right thing because they're playing the game, and I'm saying, like, there's always going to be somebody who's going to play that game in the lobbying.
Yeah.
But they're basically making money. They're a nonprofit to I just don't see the point in lobbying cryptocurrency. Like, yes, you got to teach them, but lobbying in itself just seems like a misaligned. I don't even want to get into the politics of it. This is just that personally, I feel like
But for a
lobbying
corporation, it
is
makes
bad.
perfect sense, right?
But a corporation is treated as a person, so they have to do a PAC, which means you can only contribute X amount of dollars as a corporation, and then you have to ask all of your employees to contribute also.
Huh?
It's a really, so you're basically asking your employees to also to contribute so that you can contribute and look like you're the company's giving all of the money.
Asking your employees.
They can't make you, but they ask you, and that's what all the big corporations do. So, whether you're like an AT&T or Verizon or a Google, right? I'm sure they ask all of their employees if they want to. They can because you can write it off. It's a tax thing, right?
100%?
Yeah, I think so. I'm pretty sure.
yeah.
So
Okay.
it's just a misalignment use of funds.
Yeah, and I'm a little concerned when you start, telling politicians, "Oh, here's this cryptocurrency thing. So here's what we want you to do." It's like a lot of the second you start teaching them about something, they're just going to find ways to regulate. They're like, "Oh yeah, Bitcoin. That's what Bitcoin is. Okay, actually, you know what? Actually, we should do this. You know what I mean? It's almost something where I'd prefer to be under the radar when it comes to politicians. I don't know if that's possible anymore, but maybe just the fact that a lot of the politicians don't know much about it. Hopefully, that's enough to keep them away, at least for the time being. Okay.